Hi, welcome to the Libertarian Alternative. My name is Mark Selzer, and my host today is Bonnie Glasgow.
Hi, Mark.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
So today we'll be discussing the environment and what libertarians can do, are doing, and should do in order to help save the environment. And we have with us today Ted Balaker. And he is with the Reason Public Policy Institute.
That's right.
And you're a think tank.
We're a think tank. We hang out and think and try to figure out solutions to problems like various environmental problems.
And you've been used, and the Reason Foundation is libertarian leaning, or it's been described as libertarian?
I think that would be safe to say. It's basically looking for market alternatives to the status quo. We're basically trying to move things in the direction of government control to more private choices, and that with that comes more creativity, more innovation.
Right. And I've always heard that the government is the worst polluter out there, and I've always thought that this is very odd, that mostly we hear people say, well, to save the environment we have to have the government do this or have to have the government do that. That would be kind of like saying, well, if you want to stop serial killing, why don't we go to Ted Bundy and Charles Manson and get a staff of serial killers out there to try to stop serial killing. That seems to me to be the same kind of logic. Yeah. Is that true?
I think so. I don't think you'll be invited to any Sierra Club functions, but I like the comparison. No, what you say is right on the mark in terms of you acknowledge that government is the worst polluter. I wish that more people would acknowledge that. You see time and time again, more government equals more environmental degradation. For the most extreme case, you go to the Soviet Union, and their, the complete collapse there. We hear a lot about the economic collapse, of course, but there was tremendous environmental calamity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be an example of a really huge government that in Russia, where the environment was not taken care of. Although, a libertarian can really be a conservative or a liberal or anything in between. It's just the live and let live, unauthoritarian end of any philosophy. And I consider myself a liberal and libertarian, but my fellow liberals are usually big brother liberals. They think if we just have a big brother with liberals in charge instead of conservatives, then everything will be better. Everything will be wonderful. And that's kind of, I think, what they're looking for with the government. Don't we just need the right people in charge in order to fix things?
Well, it's not even no is the short answer. It's more than that. In the first place, we have things called elections, and then even if you do get the good people in for a while, who you consider to be the bad people could be right around the corner. In the second place, a lot of these things are just unknowable in terms of we need the market mechanism for the experimentation that it allows. Mm-hmm. And so if you take anything, even something that's not an environmental issue like education or something, we don't know the one best way to educate people. We don't know the one best way to tackle any number of environmental problems right now. So the best thing to do is to experiment and to see what works best and then replicate it.
How does the government pollute? What specifically out there is the government doing to pollute?
I think a lot of the problem stems from tragedy of the commons issues. And so it may not be so much that the government is, the one going out there and dumping the toxic waste into the river, but if no one owns the river, then there's more of an incentive to just say, hey, I don't own it. Those fish, they may die, but they're not my fish, and it's just cheaper to throw it away. It's the tragedy of the commons. It's the same reason why we're all afraid to go into public restrooms, is because no one really owns it. And if you go to your friend's restroom, hopefully you have tidy friends.
In his house.
Right, you'll see that. You'll see that the restroom is clean and pleasant, hopefully.
That hasn't worked for the restrooms at most gas stations.
Right, exactly. So we can't blame the government for everything. Some people are just slobs.
Also, the Army Corps of Engineers pollutes horribly in the United States, and I think that what you said is very true, that any time that you have land that's protected by the government, it's basically, unless the person that wants to pollute on that land or build on that land has given a lot of money to the campaigns of those politicians. Like a lot of people applauded just as Clinton exited, he put a lot more land under the protection of the government. But now we have George Bush, and a lot of people, now this is a place for the people who have given a lot to his campaigns to come and drill for oil. There's more places now where the oil companies, although the oil companies probably gave just as much money to the Democrats as the Republicans. Is there a group of people that really is more protective of the environment between the Democrats and Republicans, or is it pretty much about the same, in name only, so to speak?
Yeah, I think they're both sort of missing the mark. The Democrats, they tend to see privatization as a four-letter word. The economic growth is the enemy, and Republicans are so mindful of the criticism of being anti-environment that they're really afraid to challenge that. But capitalism is really the best friend the environment has ever had, and strangely enough, the free market doesn't get the support that it deserves, the credit that it deserves for cleaning the environment. And that, to most of our viewers, is probably a remarkable thing to hear, but contrary to what you hear in the news, the United States is getting cleaner, things are getting better. If you want to look for real environmental problems, you look to the developing world, to the poor countries where they don't have the technology that we have. We have cleaner burning cars now. It takes something like 20 present-day cars to equal the amount of emissions that one car just decades ago would emit. So there's much reason to suspect and to know that the market, which is actually a very frugal impulse, especially with natural resources. You see, we're doing more with less. We used to have very heavy aluminum cans, actually tin cans first, and now aluminum, now thinner and thinner aluminum, to the point where you can just rip it apart. And that's how frugal we're getting. We're using less of our resources. Things are getting cheaper.
Now, if that's really the case, why are we inundated with the media? And if the average viewer is reading the paper, you'd think we're on the verge of an environmental apocalypse. Why? What's going on with that?
That's a good question, Bonnie. And it's part of the reason is just the nature of news, is that crisis sells. Part of it is, I think there's an impulse to think that if we have it so good in the West, if we're so wealthy, then there must be a cost to that. And so the cost must be environmental degradation. Mm-hmm. If you want to see real environmental degradation, go to sub-Saharan Africa, go to places in India where where there's no plumbing and sewage, problems like that. They don't have clean burning fuels. That's where the real problems are. And part of it is also just we need something to worry about, and so problems are like gases, they expand to fill a vacuum. And so we've made tremendous environmental progress. We have cleaner air than we've ever had. Well, not than we've ever had, but it's getting cleaner and cleaner. All the 6 major pollutants are going down. They're on a downward trend. LA has fewer smog days.
Right.
Things are looking up, but people don't want to acknowledge that. It's a very strange occurrence.
Now, how does Earth Day play into all of that? Because that's coming up, and Earth Day kind of raises the awareness that things aren't so great. So how does that play into it? That's certainly usually the focus of Earth Day, is that we have to save Mother Earth. And you know, we've been saving her. She's getting better and better. She's not dying. And there certainly are still problems, but they're not as bad as they used to be. There certainly are cities that have very bad